I use the word saved because what a difference a year makes.
Yeah.
Separated from my marriage.
Yep.
Left my career role that brought me back here. Brother became ill. At the time was apart from my kids in the separation. And that was a lot at one time.
Yeah.
And all of these other life be lifing stuff was happening at the same time. And the minute that we started talking, which is what even pushed me to ask you that day, how transparent are you to even start the process of going down this road? I wasn't going to leave that restaurant without asking you about this whole podcasting thing. Didn't know anything about it, but I knew I needed something at that moment to keep me going.
Hey guys, it's your boy DB with Soul of a Man podcast. Here with my wonder twin, Chill. Chill, what's good, brother?
I got it, man.
Hey, man, it is good seeing you, brother.
You too. End of the year.
End of the year, yeah. Wrap-up episode number 17.
Sure.
Can you believe we made it this far?
It's hard to believe. 17 episodes from when we first started talking about this is incredible, man.
Yeah, man. 17 episodes, 8 months later, 9 months later, and here we are, man. This is not our 1-year anniversary or anything, but we wanted to do a 2023 wrap-up for you guys. Just to talk about some of our past guests, some of the things we've learned over the course of doing this podcast, and some of the fun times we've had, some of the angst that we've had, and we'll try to get through this thing and within the next hour or whatever, and go from there. Yeah. Hey, yo, man, before we get started, at least I would like to give out a couple of thank yous, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great.
First of all, I want to thank God, man, for just giving us the foresight and the ability to do this. I don't think things happen in terms of happenstance. I think they're ordered, and I think we were supposed to be here. And I think it was supposed to be the two of us. You've heard me say it, and I've heard you say it to me that I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else. So first of all, I want to thank God, man. Secondly, I want to thank you, brother, for just for putting up with me. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about this. A lot of nights we talk. It's been great, man. So thanks to you, man. I also want to thank my wife, who gives me the latitude and the freedom to do this, because it does require a lot of time, contrary to what some people might believe. And then, my kids, they're always big cheerleaders. Anytime the podcast is on television or on my computer, my younger one comes in, hey, it's the podcast. Thank anybody who has watched and supported us. We have some people who have been with us from day one, and they ride with us and continue to ride with us. I want to thank you guys for just all your feedback anytime you run into one of us or we're on social media or whatever. So thanks to you guys. How about yourself, brother?
Again, like you, obviously giving God all the glory for the direction to even attempt this. And for really organically bringing us together, ordering our steps and bringing us together in the way that happened. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Certainly my children, Michael Jr., Melanie, and Christian, my heartbeats, who have likewise been just totally encouraging about what it is that we're doing, excited about what it is that we're doing. Two of them currently in school pursuing business with interest in entrepreneurship, so the opportunity for them to see their dad and their Uncle DB doing their thing on this entrepreneurial front with this podcast, and it's something different. As you said before, it's something that is kind of controlled and ruled at this point by some folks younger than us.
Yeah.
Appreciative of my fellow AAR peers who are in support of us and rocking with us, doing this for you all as much as ourselves. Want to thank you, brother, again. Don't know that it would have come to fruition without you and I being on the same page. And certainly for those people who have been supporting us from the very first episode, who continue to encourage us, because it's not easy. I think we both thought it was going to be easier than what it is, but who continue to encourage us to keep pushing, who continue to drop words of encouragement on us in regards to the subject matter that we're bringing forward, where hopefully we're making an impact on the community. So much thanks in that regard, and keep rocking with us.
Yeah, man. And actually, I got to add one more thank you, man. And I'd be remiss if I didn't add my mom in this. Yeah. She is probably our biggest cheerleader, hands down. She has caught every episode, typically the night that it airs, during the airing time. Right. And she calls me after every episode and gives me her critique and who she thought was the best and yada, yada, yada. So I got to give some shouts out to her, because I would never hear the end if I didn't. So with that said, man, yes, how did we get here, brother?
Man, crazy.
Yeah.
Lot of conversations over the years, really. Yeah. A lot of conversations over the years of talking about everything and nothing, really. And those conversations about absolutely nothing were sometimes the longest ones, still are, sometimes the longest ones. No particular subject matter, but just two black men talking to each other, which we just don't do a lot, and not talking about only sports or only music or only hip hop or only whatever, but delving deeper into family matters and aging and relationships and finances and a little bit of everything. And we were getting together for lunch prior to a football game.
Yeah.
Not this past season, but the season before.
September of 2022.
September of 2022.
Yeah.
Sat down at Smoky Bones in Greensboro prior to heading over to Aggie Stadium. And we're over lunch before the game having one of those conversations that we always had, just talking about a little bit of everything and nothing. And it was just placed on my heart to mention to you, or check with you, is just how transparent you were. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the question. How, before I even delved into podcast, anything was, how transparent are you? You're like, classic DB, man, I'm an open book.
There it is.
And sure enough, it was like, have you ever thought about a podcast? It's like, dude, yeah. Was going to ask you the same thing. And immediately, I think right then, we knew that something was going to happen. But neither one of us knew what this entailed. Had never done it before.
Right.
Didn't know what it entailed, but knew that there was something that we needed to do in sharing our conversations and sharing some great African-American brothers who we don't get a chance to see on the 6 o'clock news.
Right.
We see all of everything else, but we know some people and have come to know some people, some that we didn't know before, but come to know some people that it's like, yeah, this would be a great platform to showcase these brothers that we know. And then found out that our sisters were as interested in maybe you can speak to that. Our sisters were as interested in hearing some of these dialogues as well.
It's pretty interesting, man. So when you look back over some of the analytics, and especially like some of the clips that we post on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, when I look at the numbers, especially TikTok numbers, it gives you the gender breakdown, gives you the nationality, the whole 9 yards, which I don't know how it's capturing this data, but
Yeah.
it does. And come to find out that a large part of our following are sisters.
Yeah.
I suspect, man, is they enjoy seeing your pretty face.
Oh, please.
Not mine. I'm spoken for and all that good stuff. And, just a marginal looking guy. So, but yeah, I come to find out we had a lot of sisters following us, and then of course, a lot of them that we know have come to us and said, "Hey, the content's great. Keep up the great work." Yeah, man. So I think it just depends on which show it's been. Obviously, if you talk about the first episode, that was our most popular one. It was just us and Chauncey Douglas, who did the moderation for that episode. Shout out to her, and she was actually a guest as well. The It's Simply Love episode.
Right.
But yeah, if you look at the numbers, though, that was our most popular, and again, largely viewed by our female listeners and viewers. So yeah, the data has always proven to be pretty interesting. I mean, it speaks for itself, and I think because of that, we've had to have a couple of sisters on on our episodes.
That was a change. That was one of the first, really one of the first changes that came about in what our initial plan was, because it really was to showcase brothers. And even within our first few shows, incorporated Chauncey, the therapist of all therapists, Crystal Curry,
our sister
Crystal, and we recognized that we're going to have to continue willingly, openly, pleadingly. Continue to showcase sisters as well.
Well, if you think about it, man, I mean, if we talk about a brother's plight, struggles the whole 9 yards, why we kind of are able to make it over the hump, you name it. We can't do it without the help of our sisters.
Nope.
So it's only right that we incorporated them into the mix in terms of our episodes. But let's take a step back really quick, man. So do you remember when that first time we shot in Raleigh at the Airbnb that we rented, how you felt before that shoot, man? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that we had a lot of conversations prior to that day of shooting. And there was a lot of angst on both of our parts. I can honestly say I didn't probably sleep well 2 weeks before shooting that first episode.
I was jacked up. I was to say the least. I was jacked up. First one, in a previous career, had done some media work, radio interviews, some television interviews, some things with NFL Films, and I was stiff as a board. And the folks watching can tell you whether or not I've made any progress to date or not. I'd like to say I've relaxed some, and as we progress, I think you're going to see Darren and I get more and more comfortable in doing this and in sharing with you all our perspective on different things. But the night before, I did not sleep. Just nervous about how things would come off. I don't know technology like that, so we're forever grateful to our tech partner in Donald Curry, who had much more knowledge than either one of us had in the realm of any of this, because he's done some of it and helped to produce some of it for other people. I just didn't know how it would go. And then we had multiple shows that we were shooting that same weekend. Thought we had done the thing in getting this Airbnb in which to shoot as opposed to a studio, because we looked for studios.
We did.
And they either didn't respond or it just wasn't the environment we wanted to shoot in.
Yeah, I think a lot of the studios, and like you said, number one, some didn't respond.
Yeah.
And then the ones who either responded or even if they didn't, the studios are very cookie cutter.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
all set up like radio stations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is not the Breakfast Club, not any knock against them or whatever, but we didn't
Right.
want to do a radio station looking podcast.
Yeah.
Where we're sitting there around the table with headphones on and all of that stuff.
Right. Right.
So yeah, man, I'm with you. First couple of episodes that we shot leading up to that point, absolutely no sleep.
Yeah.
I remember that day when we set up at the Airbnb. We shot 4 episodes that day. Oh, yeah, between that Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, we shot 4 episodes. But after the first day of shooting, we actually bounced and went and grabbed some grub.
Yeah.
And we had this
Yeah.
big exhale between the two of us. Man, we sat there and had some wings,
Right.
like it was when we got started.
Yeah.
Over some
Yeah.
wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had some wings and probably a brew or two.
Right.
And yeah, man, kind of just decompressed.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
like the weight of the world lifted off our shoulders, man.
Yeah.
And then I guess
That was after the first day of shooting.
that was the first day of shooting.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think it was from that point. It's been, I won't say easy,
Yeah.
but it's not as difficult as it was that day because we put so much emphasis on make sure we had everything perfect.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, to have 3 behind it was a real exhale.
It was.
And kind of an assurance that, hey, we can do this.
Yeah. Yep. Which actually leads me to some questions, man, because we had some questions from some followers or some audience members or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Our sister, Sheila Harrison, had a question for us, man. I'm going to go to this question really quick. Take my glasses off so I can read and see. She said, how have these episodes helped us in our day-to-day lives between the two of us? How's doing this helped us?
It's been fantastic to get different perspectives from such a variety of guests that we've had, covering a lot of different subject matter, and just to have these different thoughts, these different perspectives, in some cases different from your own. That's something that you can ponder on and think about, and it's happening for you. You're just hoping that the guests are getting the same, are walking away with the same inquisitive mindset that you have. Of okay, wow, that was an interesting take on politics. Wow, that was an interesting take on divorce. Wow, that was an interesting take on business. Wow, that was an interesting take on health.
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity to kind of process in your own brain and either stay in your train of thought with it, or it might even get changed some.
Yeah.
Might get altered some, but opens your mind up to think maybe a little bit different than what you have.
No, I would agree with all of that. Also, I think for me, man, and how's it helped me in my day-to-day, I needed this.
Yeah.
Which actually, and I'll get back to that point. Actually, after I asked this question, I got another question from a viewer, a homegirl of mine. Her name's Deborah. She said, if we had to use one word to describe how the podcast has affected our life, what would that one word be? So very similar to Sheila's question, but she wants an answer in one word. Yeah. I would say for me, it's reinvigorating. Mm-hmm. That would be my word.
Mine was saved.
All right, so I'm going to get to your, but I got it because I think we're on the same wavelength. Uh-huh. So for me, man, I needed this in the worst way. When you are, I think we both are naturally creatives, in a different way,
yeah.
but both creatives. And then when you're in a position where you're not being used as far as being a creative is concerned,
yeah.
You sort of have this jitters, this jumpiness. Mm-hmm. You kind of want to do something else. You want to leap out there. You're tired of doing what you're doing, because you do want your creative juices to flow.
Yeah.
And so this podcast for me helped me tap into that creative space. Mm-hmm. I think I shared with you. The crazy thing is I majored in marketing. I've worked in marketing, product development all my life. Yeah. I'm a patent holder, but I've really never considered myself a creative until we started really doing this.
Right.
And I told you, I can't make anything. I can't draw. I can't paint. I can't shoot and edit video or whatever. I'm like, all right, if I got to say, wow, if I'm a creative, then where am I a creative at, so to speak? And I think I've told you, I feel like I'm a Kirk Franklin. And I'm not comparing myself to him at all, so don't get that twisted. But he can't sing. He can write, arrange, and play the heck out of music.
And direct. Yeah.
And that's kind of, what I do. I'm really good at storyboarding. So, our very first promo shoot.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, this is what I see. DC was able to bring it to life for us. So that's my strength, man.
Which is totally creative.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you share that with me.
Yeah, it's totally creative, and the ability to be able to see a variety of things, a multiplicity of things, and bring all of these different pieces together to tell a story.
Yep.
That is creativity.
Yeah. And so I needed that in the worst way. And I think for me, this, again, reinvigorating, and this is what this podcast has done for me.
Yeah. I use the word saved because what a difference a year makes.
Yeah.
Separated from my marriage.
Yeah.
Left my career role that brought me back here. Brother became ill. At the time was apart from my kids in the separation. And that was a lot at one time.
Yeah.
And very similar to you, in my past jobs, careers over 40 years, none of those in the corporate sector allowed me to express myself creatively. And I am a natural creative. So my only way to express my creativity was to create something of my own outside of it from a career standpoint. And in doing that, it's what led to Alan Michaels Design. It was what led to the staging, decor and staging. It's what led to an earlier business that was visual arts business with painting and sculpting, etc. And I had to create that for myself in order to allow myself the room to create. Yep. So found myself in this role that I was previously in that didn't allow me to express creatively, and all of these other life be lifing stuff was happening at the same time. And the minute that we started talking, which is what even pushed me to ask you that day, how transparent are you to even start the process of going down this road? I wasn't going to leave that restaurant without asking you about this whole podcasting thing. Didn't know anything about it, but I knew I needed something at that moment to keep me going.
Gotcha.
In that time frame, my children are all here. 2 of them started college. Another one just started high school as a freshman. And I'm lighter. It's a happiness I have not had in a long time. But a lot of that was sparked by having this platform to be creative in and expand and give back to the community in some way.
No, that's dope, man. And I'm glad that I can share that with you, brother, and be a part of it. So let's talk about some of our growing pains since our first episode, man. Growing pains, heartaches, whatever you want to call it. I think the biggest problem, I won't say problem, but the biggest issue with doing this is securing guests.
Yeah, it's tough.
Man, you're asking somebody to take time out of their day to come spend it with you to do a podcast that's not some nationally known podcast.
Right.
They're not getting paid.
Unpaid.
Yeah, yeah. And so that, I think, is the biggest problem.
And interestingly enough, I thought that was going to be the easiest piece.
Yeah.
I thought the simplest thing to do was going to be booking guests.
Yeah.
That were bringing something with them in their own story, something that would hit people, in a particular way. Yeah. So it caught me off guard that was as difficult as it was.
I think the other thing, oddly enough, was even securing locations. I think the locations were easy to secure. Yeah. However, it was inevitable when we got there was going to be something wrong. Who knew we would get a pier space in Charlotte,
right,
and shoot, and then all of a sudden the train comes down the track.
I didn't even know Charlotte had a metro.
Yes,
it's been that long since I had spent any time in Charlotte, so I didn't know that they had what do you call it? I was about
light
to say
rail.
A light rail.
Yeah,
I didn't realize they had a light rail system, and sure enough, here comes, like clockwork. Here comes the train. But back it up to the first Airbnb.
Construction next door
of an apartment building.
Apartment complex.
And yes. They were there on that day.
On a Saturday.
Cutting rebar.
Yes.
And if anybody doesn't know what that means cutting steel.
Yep.
Outside of our window as we were trying to broadcast. And thank God for great technical help.
Yeah.
Who was able to dim some of that excess sound.
No, man, it was pretty crazy. And then if you go back, even when we shot at Alonzo's spot, when we were talking about fashion, he sits right on Elm Street
in Greensboro,
and all of a sudden here comes somebody with a motorcycle.
Harley,
just as loud as it could be, and I'm like, man, could we get any more noise? And
right.
And then you got the background noise because we shot that in the summer, so you had his air conditioner on.
Right.
So you got the background noise for his AC.
Right.
And man, let's not even get into the whole run that we had where we had sound issues.
Yeah.
We call ourselves going out buying a mixer.
Yeah.
And we're thinking this $high mixer is going to help.
Yeah.
And come to find out, we spent money on a piece of crap, is what it essentially boiled down to. So we had about 3 or 4 episodes where we had sound issues.
Yeah.
Great episodes.
Yeah.
Great content with sound issues, man. So you know what? You live and you learn.
Yeah. Got through it.
I kind of think we've gotten through it. Not that we won't have issues.
Yeah.
But we've kind of gotten through that, brother. So
and the one blessing in disguise, even in those where we had issues with that board, the guest sound was great.
It was great. It was ours that was horrible.
It was ours that was off.
Yeah. So man, we're getting there, man.
Yeah.
I look forward to us continuing to learn and continue to grow.
Yeah.
I think, and I say that knock on wood, and I hold my breath as I say it, I think we almost got this thing down to a science now. I mean, there's probably going to be some inevitable hiccup that we'll have to deal with.
Right.
But here's one really cool thing that we can say. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we've ever edited an episode.
Yeah.
We don't edit.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be a guest on our show, whatever you say plays.
It's in the show.
It's in the show. We don't edit.
Yeah.
So we've been able to take a lot of these, man.
And and that's been your stance from the beginning. I was nervous about that. Just total transparency. I was really, really, really nervous about it for myself.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, for myself, even more so than the guests, because I'm like, I'm good for saying something stupid.
Yeah.
And that I'm, gonna want to get taken out, but for sure. But it's come off though.
Yeah,
it's come
man.
off.
It has done. It has done well, man, and for us to honestly say we haven't had to edit.
Yeah,
it's
that's
crazy.
a big deal. Did you have any idea that you would know this much at this point about this whole podcast sector and what all it takes? Because we're getting questions now from individuals who want to hear from us how to get started.
Yeah, which is also interesting because I don't know jack about this. I mean, I know what I know. And so if you're leaning on me for expertise, you probably want to find somebody. No, I'm just kidding. I think if someone today decided they wanted to start a podcast, I think we could certainly help them get there and get them through. Yeah. It just depends on how much work they're willing to do. I think the biggest surprise for me about this is the amount of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will see it and they figure we're just two brothers sitting down with microphones in front of them and we're just having conversations with people. We research our guests.
Yeah.
We research our topics.
And it all takes time.
It all takes time. And imagine having to do 4 or 5 of those episodes in one day. And you have to research and know something about every person and every topic.
And why is it, for our viewers, why is it that you're stacking shows like that, shooting shows stacked like that in one setting?
Yeah, because first of all, it's hard to corral for a guest individually at individual times. Most of these are on site, so we're traveling to Charlotte, to Greensboro, to Raleigh, to wherever. Yeah. And so while we're there, we're trying to get as many guests as we possibly can, versus having to go to Charlotte 4 different times to shoot 4 different people in Charlotte. Right. And I think that's another reason. And then, again, for us, man, you think about it. Our guests come in and they sit for an hour. Yeah. And they talk about what they've experienced for themselves or whatever, and they're out. Yeah. We have to learn every guest, everything about what they're dealing with, and do the homework and everything else prior to them getting there. Yeah. And then sit down and shoot 4 or 5 episodes. Yeah. Then pack up. And roll out. Right. And it's not like we have a crew or a team or whatever. Yeah. It's packing up. Yeah. It's us. Yeah. So we're bootstrapping this.
You left one piece out.
What's that? Oh yeah. Definitely that piece. Money. I mean, I'm not some rich brother. As a matter of fact, I'm a pretty broke brother. So yeah, it's certainly way more cost effective to shoot multiple episodes in one day.
Yeah. It's particularly when you're renting, own some equipment, rent some other equipment, and you're renting equipment for a certain number of days. So it really is essential to try and shoot multiple shows if you can get it done.
Yeah. So another question from a guest, man. Speaking of which, shooting these shows, they said, how do you psych yourself up, or what kind of self-talk do you give prior to shooting these episodes?
Interesting enough, you know what, we were at odds. We were in different places in regards to kind of the background research when we first started. Kind of the background research of guests, and if you all haven't picked up, Darren has a gift for gab. That's much more natural than mine is. But your stance in the beginning was, we'll research a little bit, but I don't want it to feel scripted. And I agree with you on that piece. For me, I couldn't fathom talking to somebody for an hour and not having some sort of a script. Yeah. So psyching myself up, I can't really say is that so much as just preparation. We've all, at our age, we've all sat through, I'll start with the Queen. We've all sat through Oprah. We've all sat through Dr. Phil, Sally Jesse Raphael, Geraldo, who was the brother? I forgot the brother. Montel Williams. And the list goes on and on. And now J. Hud and others. But it really is the equivalent of a talk show. Yeah. And you really want to ask probing questions that provoke your guests to share of themselves first and foremost, because the people that we've brought on have really fascinating life stories of their own, and that takes some time and some work to do. So I can't really say I psych myself up so much for the show. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of really trying to make sure that you're prepared for each and every guest that's coming through. And again, I'm so glad to be in the trenches with you, because we've had some different occasions to show that you had the flu,
yes.
Flu that I had COVID or something. That we shot like 4 shows. I mean, I was done that day. I had nothing to give, and you carried it. And hopefully I carried the one where you were dealing with the flu bug. Yeah, it's been a good trade off between us. But I can't say again that I really psyched myself up beforehand.
Nah, same here, man. I think the only thing that kind of motivates me, I mean, I'm kind of self-motivated, but to do this is, number one, I think the feedback that we get from people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't need to psych myself up because you get enough good feedback from the people who view.
Yeah.
Or
and it's
listen,
so important.
which is critical.
Yeah.
I think knowing that we are in some way, shape, form, or fashion helping our community
Yeah.
gets me fired up to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really keeps us going.
Right. Right.
You know, pep talks, I don't need any of that. You know, that boys, I don't care about that.
Yep.
It's just a matter of us knowing that we're helping our community. We've gotten great feedback. That's sort of what keeps me going with this, man.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of the episodes, brother.
Yeah.
So our very first guest, Ray Trapp, was our first guest, man. After our intro episode.
Yeah.
Interesting brother, an Aggie.
Yeah.
By way of grad school.
Yeah.
Health issues.
Yeah.
Man, that show got a lot of buzz, and I think
it really did.
If you haven't watched, and if you happen to be watching this, I certainly say go back to episode number 2, our very first guest, and just listen to that episode and understand the importance of getting your checkups and taking care of your health.
No doubt. It was interesting. One of our followers, a good friend of mine, Vicky Ferguson, sent a question in for us, and she works in the health space, and she said that show was impactful to her because she sees folks and doesn't see folks, particularly black men, who need to get an annual checkout, who need to do what they need to do in regards to making sure that they stay healthy for themselves and their families. But it was a dope show. It was a really dope show. I knew of Ray's story, but I didn't know him. And when I was moving back to Greensboro, the day before I landed back in Greensboro, he moved to RTP, Research Triangle Park.
Yep.
And so we had made contact, had talked about connecting when I got here, and we literally passed each other on 40, going in opposite directions. And when we started thinking about guests, his story came up because I'd heard the story of a battle he had with cancer, and how he had overcome it and worked and beaten it.
Yep.
And was back at a great point of health. But it was such an inspiring story. What I didn't realize until we got into the episode, that this master degreed, well-educated, articulate brother who literally is held, in Greensboro and now in RTP, some incredible positions, did not get a regular checkup.
Yeah.
Just from kind of his own historical upbringing. And it just was not the thing necessarily to do, to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him the question, when would you have gone? And he literally said, when I was passed out on the floor, which was nearly the case.
Yeah.
He got very ill and finally went in. But that hit my ear. It just hit me in a different sort of way, because I'm saying, if this person, with all of the resources and all of the insurance and all of the this and that and this and the other, to get this kind of care, isn't doing it, for those who don't have access to it, there isn't a chance that many of them are doing so. But he was a great guest on multiple fronts. In all of Ray's eloquence and in all of his many accolades, came in as Ray from College Park, Georgia, and baseball cap, shades, and it just showed the different levels and complexities of us.
Yeah, no, I love how he came in. He came in as his authentic self.
He came in as authentic self.
Had his fitted on, had his sunglasses, and sat there and did an interview the entire time with his sunglasses on. Had his J's on, short sleeve, tats everywhere. I'm like, now this is what I'm talking about.
And
I could appreciate it.
And was brilliant. In what he brought. Like Darren said, I really encourage those of you who are watching, if you haven't seen some of these episodes, everything lives on our YouTube channel at the Soul of a Man podcast. Go back and check them out. These folks have been dropping science.
Which leads me to my next one. Our very first female, we're going to call her Dr. Crystal Curry because she's pursuing her PhD now.
It's coming.
And it won't be long before she's officially Dr. Crystal Curry, but we're going to put it out there. Our first female, our sister, man, to hear her story. And I've known her for 10 years, and I had no clue that she was born to in a group home to teenage parents. Yep. 13 and 14, I think she said. So if you look at a definition of overcoming the odds, she is that she would be the poster child for that. There is no way that most people born to teenage parents. So chances are you're born to young parents. Chances are you're born into poverty if your parents are that young, and you just have the odds totally stacked against you.
Right.
And now you look at the body of work that she's doing. With her Cycle Breakers Conference.
Chose to do.
Yeah. It's her calling.
It's her calling.
Yeah. She's got her Cycle Breakers Conference coming up, I want to say March. Yep. 2 days. And the great work she's doing, it's nothing short of amazing, man, for someone who was, again, born under those conditions. If you haven't watched her, she's been on our podcast twice now. She was just up here for our last episode to talk about dealing with your kinfolk during the holidays.
Right.
We know how that can be. It was a great episode. That was the first one we've actually ever did that we all weren't in the same place.
Right. First.
Hey guys, this is DB with the Soul of a Man podcast. Hey, we really appreciate you guys rocking with us all these months. The feedback has been amazing. We hope to continue to bring you amazing content. We need a huge favor from you though. We need you to like. I think that like button is somewhere right here. We need you to share. I think it's right here maybe. And we need you to subscribe. Come on, guys. Keep rocking with us and share this content. And we want to reach millions. We appreciate you. I was sick as a dog, so you carried us. You're talking about somebody carrying somebody, man. I was sick. Couldn't really do a lot. I appreciate it. But
man. You know, I got to add real quick, too. Crystal's episode was kind of one of the first times that the word trauma really hit for me. And, when you start thinking about it and start thinking about your own life, you realize that we all have experienced different traumas in our lives. Maybe not as extreme as what she did as a young girl, but we've all had different traumas. And the fact that she chose this path, to help other people overcome their trauma is just phenomenal. She came back, like as you said, to talk to us about overcoming family holiday trauma, and Crystal will be a part of us. We'll bring her back every time I talk with Darren. Talk about they had Dr. Poussant was a returning executive director on the Cosby Show back in the day. Trained clinician, and we see Crystal that same way, so passionate and so knowledgeable about what it is that she does that we know she'll be a great help to a lot of people.
No, absolutely. So moving forward in that vein, man, or that realm, want to make sure we give everybody some love. So Chauncey Douglas showed up that weekend as well. She did two things for us. Number one, she sort of moderated our very first episode. Shout out to her again for that.
Yeah.
Then she had her own episode called It's Simply Love, which is essentially a book that she'd written, which is a love letter to herself.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked that episode out, please do so. Check out her book. It's called It's Simply Love by Chauncey Douglas. Another great episode, and we appreciate Chauncey. She's a fan of the show.
Yeah.
We're a fan of hers. She's super connected. Can't wait to meet some of those people that she's connected to. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Man, when you talk about, we say this hasn't been easy, but there have been certainly certain episodes and certain guests that this has just been really easy for us to do. It was like sitting down talking to your boys. And 3 come to mind for me. Well, actually 4 come to mind. Eric Montgomery.
E-Money.
And Frank McCain. I'll start with those 2.
Frank Jr.
Yeah. I mean, these are our boys.
Yeah.
And what I will say to you is this. There's a really good thing that the cameras weren't rolling
Before
pre
or after.
Because we'd be bleeping every other word, first and foremost. You're talking about 2 brothers who are absolutely brilliant. I mean, brilliant in their own right. Yes. And to just sit around and have our boy talk. And this is probably something that we need to do, man, just more often, and something that's part of the podcast, but just like in our natural habitat, so to speak. Again, probably a lot of bleeping going on. But man, those 2 guys
probably need to do that though. Probably need to do that. And, and like you've got a group of friends in Charlotte that you and Janelle connect with. So your wives see you amongst your crew. But there's some who maybe haven't, and to just see some brothers sitting around talking like brothers talk to each other, who know each other, who've known each other for years. Those 2 guys we've known for 40 years. Talking junk, talking whatever, and just authentically being themselves, not in the big time, law roles that one of them is in, or heading the United Way that the other one, United Way of Greater Greensboro, that the other one is in, and just relaxing, taking off whatever sort of corporate mask they have to wear at any given point, and us as well, and just talking to your brother.
That was us talking to our brothers.
That was us talking to our brothers.
2 other people that come to mind when I think about ease of episode for us to do, Alonzo Ding.
Easy.
I mean, it's about fashion. Dude, we've spent countless hours over the phone talking about fashion, giving our fashion opinion about somebody we saw on television, someone we saw on a podcast, a brother that had a suit on that we didn't like, whatever, man. That was just a really easy episode to do as well. And Alonzo is a master.
Alonzo's an absolute custom clothing master.
Master.
And interestingly enough, he's really mild-mannered, real laid-back, total gentleman in every sense of the word. And I told you before, because I knew him, you didn't, and I told you before we got together with him, I said, he's kind of quiet, but you get him talking about apparel, and I'm talking high-end apparel, I think he's going to talk. I think he's going to talk. And when Alonzo got cooking, he was cooking.
No, he was cooking with gas. There's no doubt about it. And then finally, another really easy episode for us, and I think it's because we both enjoy business and entrepreneurship so much, is our brother, as a matter of fact, he's probably the youngest guest we've had on the show. Our brother Rasis Batsuli. Man, a immigrant from the Republic of Congo. Get here to the United States, grows up in Charlotte in basically, poverty. And fights his way out and becomes an entrepreneur, creates Ceasefire Productions.
Doing it.
Killing it. If you're looking for a wedding DJ, if you're looking for a corporate party DJ, His and also the lighting, the whole 9 yards. His company, Ceasefire Productions, they can do it for you.
Building a media company
from the ground up.
That we're gonna hear big things about.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So moving on, just to a couple of other guests, man. The only guest that needed a to be continued episode, our sister,
My
Dr.
girl.
Laura Colson.
Dr. Laura. Yeah.
Man, I knew, and this was our first take.
Yeah.
First take at a relationship episode, because we vowed that this would
really
not
do
be
it.
our thing. We don't do relationship because
Yeah.
everybody has an opinion about them, and you know what opinions are like, elbows and buttholes. We all got at least one. So I didn't want to have anything to do with relationship. But this was kind of the unavoidable as it relates to her.
Yeah.
Again, the first and only to be continued episode that we've done.
Yeah.
She's got, to me, the most classic one-liner in the history of The Soul of a Man so far. When she said, "I didn't give a beep."
Yeah. Yeah.
That resonated.
With a lot of people. A whole lot of people.
Yeah. Bruh, I remember reading the comments when we posted that, and we bleeped it on the TikTok and Instagram.
But
played it on the actual episode.
Yeah.
The people who came in with the comments and said I was in that same position, both men and women.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot.
A lot.
Did not know, and Laura's an author as well, did not know that the topic of divorce would ring and resonate as it did with so many people.
Yeah.
In a situation where my marriage has come to an end, myself, and you just feel like you're out there. And I can't make a blanketed statement and speak for everybody. For myself, feel like you're kind of out there on an island. Mm-hmm. And so sure enough, she and I had met going through Leadership Greensboro. And the very first day, we started talking, and the very first day of the program, we started talking and just connected. And the more and more that we shared, we realized we shared that piece. That piece as well. She was further along in her process than I was, just felt compelled to bring her on and make her a part of this piece, but had no idea that it was going to resonate the way that it did. The interesting thing with Dr. Colson, Dr. Laura, is we did the first episode as she kind of talked through her book. Mm-hmm. And we got to the end of the episode and ended it, cut the tape, and she said, "You guys didn't press me hard enough."
Yeah.
And, it again, one of those learning experiences, not having gone through this, and you start to realize just how brilliant an Oprah Winfrey, a whomever else, these master interviewers actually are, and how they can navigate through something without offending their guest, but take them to the point where they need to take them, where they really share how they're feeling about something.
Yeah, and to our defense, and again, I think we did that episode. We didn't want to come off as the two brothers, you going through a divorce, me having been divorced. Yeah. We didn't want to come off and say, all right, we have this sister sitting here.
Right.
It's easy to either side with her because she's in our presence, or it's easy for us to take, I'm just going to call it what it is, the nigger route, and side with the brothers because we're two men.
Yeah.
And we're not going to let this sister sit here and bash another brother because we didn't get his side of the story.
Right.
So we had to play this delicate balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we did a decent job of that on the first episode.
Right.
But it left us lacking.
And children involved.
And children involved.
Which we both had a major regard and respect for.
Absolutely.
But where she was coming from was, I think, a greater understanding than us at that point of what the masses needed to hear about it, in not just going through it, but in overcoming it.
Yeah.
And building and living on beyond, regaining the strength to keep going on.
Yep.
And doing that. But it was a learning experience that, okay, there's a little bit more work on the front end that maybe needs to be done to make sure that your guest is comfortable to a degree, because we don't share the questions that we're going to ask.
Right.
But to get a real sense of where they are, and just how far you can push. Yeah. So when we came back for the second round, it was like, all right, strap your gloves on, Laura, because you said it wasn't hard enough.
This is what you asked for.
This is what you asked for. We coming at you at this point. And she held it down.
Yeah, she handled it masterfully.
she held it down.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. No, I think that was, man, again, one of those really great episodes. It's one of these things that she, again, will probably be a guest again in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Yeah. We talk about doing a panel. We've talked about it.
Yep.
It's something that has to be done at some point, and we'll get there. And she's got to be a part of that panel. So,
but who knew this subject would be such a...
I knew it. I did. You're talking divorce, brother. That's a hot button, especially amongst the African American community, man. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, 1 in every 2 marriages end in divorce, and then actually 75% of those end up in divorce the second time. So I knew that would be. That would be a hot button.
I really and truly did not.
Yeah. So yeah, man, great episode, great guest. Yeah. We love our sister Laura.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our Charlotte run, bruh.
Charlotte run.
So the second Charlotte run.
Charlotte run.
First one is when we had the problems with the pier space and the trains and all of that good stuff. Yeah. Second Charlotte run, man, was I felt like we came into our own, number one, as podcasters. Yeah. I think we had the sound down to a science. Yeah. We had the quality of video down to a science. Lighting, the whole nine. Everything. And then we had 4 brothers to close us out that were, absolutely amazing. They were on their grind, their game. Yeah. These are 4 brothers. Youngsters to us. Yeah, in their 40s. Yeah. 3 of which I knew. 1 I did not, but heard great things about him. And you heard me say it during that podcast. That's my Charlotte crew. They're younger than me. Yeah. I tend to be the elder statesman in that crew when we're all hanging out doing date night and everything else. Right. Again, my peers, keep me humble. Mm-hmm. That young brother crew keeps me hungry. Yeah. You've heard me say that. Yeah. My peers keep me humble just because you guys know me. You can be like, yeah, brother, you tripping. You need to shut up. That's where the humility comes in, because y'all know me forever. Yeah. But these brothers, they keep me hungry, man. Just some of the great things that they're doing and continue to do. Yeah. Let's talk about it, brother. First of all, we had our brother Chris Moxley, who's the owner of the 704 shop, co-owner of the 704 shop in Charlotte. Yeah. He took us to a masterclass in business.
Yeah, it was masterful. It really and truly was masterful. They're not operating on a small level
at
all. But just these 3 friends out of UNCC, who got together and decided to start pursuing this business. And Chris' story was an interesting one as well, coming out of what he described, an impoverished background, living in the projects. And his mother had the fortitude to really push the issue of education, really, really, really drive and push education on him. And it was her push, and then something within him, some of it, a fear of returning to or staying in that existence or that state of poverty, and just not wanting that life for himself pushed him academically to exceed beyond what the average is. I mean, he was an exceptional student. Goes to Carolina, realizes maybe this isn't for me, transfers to UNCC, and just blossoms and completely excels there. So his story was really a fascinating one. But man, as we went through the episode, from somebody who loves entrepreneurship, has been an entrepreneur, the whole nine, he really gave a business masterclass. Yeah. And probably the one thing, Deborah asked the question, earlier, how did these things impact you? How did doing this, and how did the episodes impact you? And I have to say, Mock said something that was a soundbite from his episode that I focus on getting it done, basically.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, for me, it's about getting it done. Yep. And, somewhere between 15 and 20 years his senior, for me, that stuck with me, as someone who's, in their 30s or 40s, been on the same kind of grind that these younger guys are currently in and on, raising up children, and, and reaching a point where, you maybe don't have quite as much of the grind in you as you did in your 30s and I'll be 60 in a year. Yeah. I don't have as much of the physical grind in me as I did as a young man. But just to hear him say that, it was a reminder of a different time for me. And quite honestly, a mindset that I need to get back to of, push through and get it done.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think, again, hearing him talk through how they succeeded through COVID was big. How they went from brick and mortar to, pretty much 100% online. Yeah. And now how it's kind of balancing its way back out.
To a point of opening up new.
I was going to say, they just opened up a second location in the Charlotte Douglas International Airport.
It's fantastic.
Great location. Yeah. Great merch in there, man. If you're ever flying through Charlotte, check out the 704 shop. Yeah. Not a shameless plug for me. I don't get anything, but it's my boy's place. It's a dope location. Mox is doing his thing, and he and his business partners, man. And I wish those brothers nothing but continued success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
We'll see him again. I have no doubt we'll see him again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So next brother in that Charlotte run, Jamal Kennard. Man. Here's what I'm tripping on. When I look at the data, and to me, that is the most slept on episode that we filmed to date. Yep. Hear me out. If you have not watched the Community Crusader episode with Jamal Kennard, you must see that episode. Yep. The work that this brother is doing in the community, headed up this nonprofit, started this nonprofit. I felt like I've never had so many jewels dropped on me in an hour. Yeah. I don't think in my entire life than I have for that episode. As a matter of fact, it kind of made me feel inadequate as it relates to my giving back to the community. Yeah. I'm just being candid. Yeah. I think he laid the gauntlet down and kind of drew a line in the sand in terms of what we all need to be doing as it relates to us giving back to the community.
Step up.
Yeah. an amazing, amazing episode, man, that to me, hands down, my mom called me that night, as she always does. And she's like, son, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. That was the best episode y'all ever had. And I'm like, wow. Me, I'm kind of impartial, just for the simple fact is I love all the guests that we've had on, and I appreciate their time.
Yeah.
But my mom, she don't have to be impartial, and she never will. And if you know my mom, she gonna give it to you straight, no chase. So
different subject matter.
Different subject matter. Yeah.
Community activism, and I guess part of his focus was the Lakeview community of Charlotte.
Yep.
And we've seen it. Me growing up, spending a part of my adult life. I was about to say growing up in Brooklyn, but spending 20 years of my adult life in New York, and the majority of that in Brooklyn. I've seen the effects of gentrification. Seen how these communities that were historically black communities, you look up one day and folks say, "Oh, and there's the Starbucks," and you can just about count and know it's over. Well, before moving to Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, I was in Bed-Stuy, do or die. Yep. 3 blocks from Marcy Projects. Yep. When I moved to Clinton Hill, it was literally the street that ran parallel to me is now Biggie Smalls way. Yeah. Where it literally is where Biggie grew up, the building in which he and his mother lived. And you want to move in there now, you need to come with about $4 million.
Yep.
And so I've seen the effects of gentrification, and this is part of what Jamal's work has been in bringing awareness to it. And I'm sitting there listening to his episode, and he had been through some training with the Racial Equity Institute, which is headquartered in Greensboro. And I've done a portion, not the extent of the training he's done, but I've done a portion of that training, and you could hear it just pouring out of him. And he just dropped science from beginning to end. Yeah. And again, someone that we will see again.
We definitely see him again. We have vowed for 2024 to go shoot an episode over in the Lakeview community, do a barbecue, do whatever we have to do. We're going to invite some friends. Hopefully people will join us there. But when it gets warm outside, for certain, that is going to be one of those things that's on our list, just sort of us giving back and participating. So can't wait. Looking forward to doing that.
Yeah.
So man, brings us to the last two brothers in the last couple of episodes. Actually, prior to us shooting the the holiday one with Crystal, our brother John Hill, who penned, again as I call an opus, to his company, to Bank of America, the email that kind of resonated through the entire organization. I am not okay. And this was during the height of the George Floyd murder, which was also during the height of COVID. Again, that brother wrote an absolute opus to his company. And he challenged the thought process of the higher ups within that organization. If you think about what we live daily as black men, again, we can go off to these great jobs, come back to these great, and hope you make it back to your community, back to your home, without getting stopped, without having those blue lights behind you. And then if that does happen, how do you handle yourself in doing so? Then you do make it home. Now you want to walk around your own neighborhood just for some fresh air and exercise. And you're kind of afraid to do that. You have to be cognizant of the actual gear or clothing that you have on, because you don't want to kind of set the wrong tone or precedence.
Absolutely.
That's crazy, man.
It's crazy. You sent his email to me. I saw it, read it, saw the title, and was just like, wow, what a I'd like to say a bold statement, but we were all feeling that.
Yeah.
I'm not good. I'm not okay. And most of us had to go back to work,
Yeah.
Within a day or so of it. And you're walking into these spaces jacked up, knowing, you're not in a good place. So, he pens this letter, basically saying that, and sends it off to the C-suite of C-suites
Yeah.
of Bank of America,
Yeah.
second largest financial
Yep.
institution
Second
in
largest
this country.
Chase. Yep.
And it permeates throughout the organization globally.
Yep.
I mean, to take that chance, to take that risk, takes some kahunas,
Big time.
big time.
Yeah.
Because the risk is that you're out the door. Okay, this guy's a troublemaker, and he could have been gone.
Yeah.
So to take the risk to do that, just standing on principle and integrity, and just being fed up and tired, and that's something is a theme that we have in conversation a lot, of brothers just being tired. You're always on the grind. You're always on the defensive to some degree. You have to be to some degree, and this isn't to imply that brothers out here living their whole life in a defensive mode, but you kind of are. It's not to say you aren't living. It's not to say you aren't enjoying life. It's not to say whatever, but you've always got to be in a cautionary mode.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be for a number of reasons. I think, you get on an elevator.
Yeah.
You got somebody clutching a purse. Yeah. And I don't care whether you have a suit on or not.
Yeah.
You're driving down the highway, you look in your rearview mirror, and there's a black and white, blue and white, or whatever you want to call it behind you.
Right.
And you haven't done anything wrong.
Yep.
Your butt cheeks automatically get tight. They do, man. It's just the nature of the beast.
They do.
And, as I think I stated during that podcast, I have a white friend. He said, Darren, I will never know what it feels like.
No.
He's like, when a cop's behind me, it's just a cop is behind me.
Yep.
For me, my butt cheeks get tight because I don't know if the blues are going to come on.
Yep.
And this is going to be that time.
Yep.
And not only that, having experienced it myself.
Right.
Another topic for another day.
Absolutely.
It's something else, man. So for John, again, during the height of George Floyd, to pen such a eloquent email to his higher ups, and for them to respond how they did,
yes,
as a company, as a global organization,
right,
says a lot about them. Obviously, says a lot about him as well.
Yeah. And
the other thing I'll say, and we'll jump to the next, is that shout out to both John and Chris Moxley for being elected into the Black Charlotte Who's Who this year.
Yep.
Congrats, brothers, and shout out to them, man.
Well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well deserved. Yeah.
So, man, our hands down, most difficult episode we had to do.
Yeah.
Our brother Kareem Fogel, who lost his son to gun violence. His son was murdered.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, by the time this episode airs, it would be the 1-year anniversary of Nas getting killed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
By the time the show airs. So it was December of 2022.
Yeah.
So it's still really fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
For this brother to have the willingness, it was his idea to come on our podcast to talk about this, was something else, something to behold.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have done it.
No. I couldn't.
It was everything I could do
Yeah.
as a father to hold it together on that episode.
Yeah.
We both have two other friends who've experienced this
loss.
loss in a very similar fashion.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things, man, that you wish you never had to have that episode and talk about,
Right.
but we had to.
Yeah. It was going in, even planning the day. You had the foresight to say, okay, we have got to speak to Kareem last.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about it in that way. You brought it up, and the minute you said it, it was like, yeah, absolutely, because we can't tackle. I can't tackle a conversation that is going to be that heavy, and then we roll out of that right into something that's upbeat or just of
Right.
another subject. But it became evident from the minute he started talking that he needed to talk, I felt.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And this was, again, a conversation initially between yourself and his wife, and her saying to you, he needs to talk about this, and wants to do so with you all. As a father, I go back to Deborah again, asking about preparation for shows. How do you psych yourself up? I had to kind of psych myself up for that one, get into a different sort of mindset, because my 3 children were at home,
Yep.
waiting for me to get back from the drive from Charlotte.
Yep.
And when I tell you we finished, it was a long day of shooting. It was the last show that we shot. I thought that we handled it with as much grace as we could, and he was very open
Yeah.
in sharing what could be shared, and even more so in sharing the feelings that he was having of his loss, vengeful thoughts, legacy
Yep.
thoughts, thoughts of his daughters,
Yep.
his other kids, and again, I thought that we handled it as gracefully as we could, and thought that he was incredible in his strength and in sharing just where he was in all of this. I had an hour and a half so drive back to Greensboro. I couldn't shake it for a few days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough, man. The one thing that I think I've gotten a lot out of all of these episodes, but the one thing that sticks with me the most is I think someone asked that question. When he said, people are calling you saying, hey, man, is there anything I can do? Blah, 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 blah. The typical stuff when you have a loved one pass away.
Yeah.
And he said, just be available.
Yeah.
That is the person that I try to be on a daily basis, day in and day out.
Yep.
If any of my friends
Yep.
or people who are associated with me, I just try to be available.
Mm-hmm.
I just try to be there when they need me.
Yep.
I can't fix it.
Yeah.
I can't solve the issue.
Yep.
But if you want to talk, if you want a shoulder to cry on, if you want somebody to cry with you, because I have no problems crying,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm available.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest thing that he left me with.
Yeah.
When he said that.
Yeah.
Man, again, prayers out to Kareem and Jarvis and their kids as we're coming up on the anniversary of Nas's passing.
Yes.
Our thoughts are continuously with them in prayers.
Yes.
Our thoughts are with all of our viewers and their families and their kids.
Absolutely.
Again, we always say it, man, hug your kids tight. Tell them that you love them. Hug your other family members, spouses, whatever.
Yep.
And do the same thing.
I gotta add, Kareem needed to talk.
Yep.
However many months and episodes later, we still get more comments
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
about Kareem
Yep.
and his family
Yep.
and the loss of Nas than anything else we've done.
Again, back to the data.
Yeah.
And I hate to use data in a subject like this, but when you look at the most watched episode outside of our very first one, this was the most watched episode.
Yep.
If you look at TikTok views and Instagram views, hands down, the first and foremost.
Yep.
I literally went through all of the TikTok questions and comments and responded. And there were so many of them. He alone probably garnered on all social media 200,000 views. And God knows how many comments.
Yeah.
And it's still driving today. Like our TikTok page will blow up one day, and it's like everything that's not. I'm sorry, our Instagram page will blow up one day, and it's all Kareem's episode.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we've increased our number of followers by 50 in an hour because 50 people went and saw his clip.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was amazing about that is the number of people who are experiencing the same thing.
Man.
We get caught up in our little bubbles.
Yeah.
Our families are good.
Yeah.
And man, the number of people who have experienced the same thing has blown my mind.
Yeah. And folks needed to hear
Folks
from
needed to
him.
hear from him. And I think it has allowed a lot of people to not forget,
Yeah.
but to have the strength to move on.
Yeah.
And deal with it.
Right.
So I suspect this is something that's going to live in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Just because it's the subject matter.
Right. Right.
Man, I'm gonna actually try to ask one more question from a viewer, and this is from my brother James Self, which actually kind of stems off of both John and Kareem's episode. He says, "How do we create more safe havens to express ourselves?" This is black men.
Yeah.
Letting black men know that you are not alone in your struggles or feelings. He said there are several black women organizations, both formal and informal, to kind of help them get through their pain and their traumas and whatnot. But we don't have enough of this for black men.
Yeah. I think just more dialogue. We started this as a platform. We certainly encourage others to develop platforms of their own.
Yep.
To create a safe space in place to have these conversations, and then just talking, just amongst yourselves. We were in college together. We talk often about our college experience, our friends that came from those experiences. During the course of the time that we were in school at A&T, and it was a different experience. It was an incredible experience, and it was an experience that created that space for relationships that have carried on for many, many, many years.
Yep.
So I kind of feel at times I have an advantage in that regard for having these conversations. And being open to these conversations, but wherever they come from, was a part of my men's ministry when I was in Brooklyn. It was an avenue, a venue through which to have conversation that was built around basically us choosing a book, kind of a book club of sorts, but beyond that, way beyond that. But we would read some text, come together twice a month and discuss it, and discuss anything and everything else right there in the church. No limits on what could be discussed. So whether it's in church, whether it's fraternity, whether it's some other social organization, whether it's just you and your boys. A couple of weeks ago, man, a college friend was concerned. He just hadn't seen me. My boy Mike Johnson and my sister Sherry Parker. And they had told me for several months, like, look, we need to see you. Mm-hmm. And if we don't see you willingly, we're going to come and yank you up. And we got together for brunch. I think we met at 11. I think we left at 4.
Yeah.
And it was a look at the clock like, y'all realize it's 4 o'clock? Okay, I think it's time for us to go now. The conversation was so easy. It was so full, so fulfilling, so nurturing, to just be with family of whom I don't share blood with.
Yeah.
And to know it was a safe space to be open and honest about whatever. We've got to have more of those conversations, whether they're planned or impromptu. And what I've found, when you get to kind of this age, there's got to be some intentionality behind it, or it won't happen.
Yeah, no, I would agree, man. And I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I think you've pretty much hit them all right on the head. I will say this as we wrap. I think there are a lot of great podcasts out there.
Yeah.
A lot of them are obviously driven by the entertainment space. I think you would be hard pressed, and I challenge anybody to find another podcast. And this is not me saying this is because this is ours. Mm-hmm. That holistically is concerned about the health and well-being of our community.
Yeah.
I think we are so interwoven into the tapestry of the African-American community. Mm-hmm. It's not funny. And I challenge anybody to find another podcast that does this.
I believe that.
If you thought 2023 was good, wait until 2024.
Hold on.
We coming. In the words of Dion. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, whole nother show. Again, I challenge anybody to find one that does it holistically the way we do. You got people who touch on finance. You got people who touch on relationships. You got people who touch on whatever. But unless you can touch on the whole body and heal the whole community, or at least have a part in it, I think you're selling the community short.
I'll add to that and encourage and invite. I'm looking at the camera and says, encourage and invite you. We talk about supporting Black-owned businesses. We talk about supporting each other, etc. This hasn't been an easy venture at all,
or cheap
venture at all. It takes time. It takes money. It takes background, research. It takes a lot to do it, and we're doing it willingly. And the expectation of those persons who call us their family and their friends is that you'll tune in and support what it is we're doing. Not asking for any money, just literally tune in, hit a like, hit a subscribe,
hit a share,
hit a share to help us grow this, because truly through these platforms, the only way that you grow them is through the likes, subscribes, and shares.
Yep.
That's how we grow this community, and that's our expectation. I've been an entrepreneur in the past. I've been an entrepreneur that's seen incredible support from the community. I've been an entrepreneur that has at times scratched my head saying, why doesn't the community support more? So, there really is a hope and a prayer, but also an expectation, again, of those closest to us. It's simply a matter of tuning in at your own convenience. because we're not shooting live at this point, everything is pre-recorded at this point, and that's the path that we're currently on. You can and have access to us either through YouTube and other major streaming audio platforms with ease. But it's an expectation. We expect you to support us because again, we're bringing some content. We're planning on bringing even greater, deeper content, and we've got an expectation for you to tune in and support your brothers.
Two things before we close on my side. What keeps us going and what keeps driving me is a conversation that was in passing that I had during homecoming, during GHO. I was in the mall, and I was headed out to my car. I was running, and Brother Reggie Barnes, one of your fraternity brothers,
Reverend Doctor,
was passing me in the hallway as I'm heading out the door, and he said, "Hey, Darren, it's working." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "The podcast is working. Keep going." And he turned his back and he ran his way, and I ran mine. So again, thank you, Brother Barnes, for that encouragement. One last thing, this could not be possible without the help of a brother that you guys never see. He's behind the scenes. We want to bring him to the front of this.
Yes, sir.
Our brother from 1224 Media. If you need any media stuff, any marketing, any whatever you want to call it, he is our brother. He's here. He's solid. He does a great job. He's the husband of our sister Crystal Curry. It's our man Donald Curry.
Yes, sir.
Donald, thank you, brother, for everything you've done for us. Thank you for riding with us. I know we can be pains in the butt at times.
Forget a lot of stuff.
We're not the most technically savvy brothers ever, but we appreciate you, man. Thank you for helping us get through 2023, and we look forward to 2024.
Absolutely. So you got to get in here and show folks who you are. Step in.
Man, come on in the camera.
Yeah. This the man.
This is our brother. Dude. Yes, our brother DC. Yes. Well, look, guys, this is episode 17, the 2023 wrap up. This is it for 2023. Thank you guys for rocking with us. Continue to support us. We love y'all. Peace.
See you in 24.
Yeah, see you in 24.